Hello. Now, I want to talk about eating and eating too much or eating too little. So, this is something that we can all relate to, okay? And it was really interesting. Before had lunch not long ago, and I was thinking about recording this video while I was having lunch. And I almost thought, because I keep thinking to myself, I probably do eat too much. Being in where I live in this part of the world, there's so much beautiful, delicious food all the time. And I'm surrounded by vineyards. It's just surrounded by temptations. So I'm sure I'm eating far too much out of greed and desire. Um, so I think when I sat down to have my lunch, I kind of almost decided to eat a little bit less. And then all my head trash piled in. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Because when you think about eating, it's such an intrinsic part of our existence and we need to do it, right? But we have so many patterns that get involved in our eating. So for me, I made a really big lettuce salad with a lovely vinaigrette, and normally I put loads of extra stuff in it, like whatever, tomatoes and cucumbers and things like that. And today I just thought, no, I'm just going to have a massive, just loads of lettuce, and that's it, with a bit of baguette and some cheese, and that'll be it. And my kids, for some reason, didn't sit down with us. They think they probably munched when we were out earlier, so they didn't have much of an appetite. But I'd already put some food aside for them, like cut some bread. And so then I was faced with the prospect of wasting food and throwing stuff away. And I was like, no, I can't do that. So then I just started wolfing their portions, and suddenly all my good intentions out the window because I've got stuff, head trash around, waste and wasting things, whether it's time, wasting effort, so I want to be efficient. So this idea of waste shows up in lots of places, but it definitely shows up in my eating. And, I will finish the plate rather than leave some because then it's going to get wasted. So this wasting thing really showed up for me. And when you think about throwing things away, this touches on letting things go, which I've talked about in my video on control. These conflicts that we're carrying, and this tug of war that our values are doing. The letting go one is all part of the control thing, and we don't want to let go of control, so we don't want to let things go. And so, but again, letting go is almost like throwing things away. If you think about letting go of your stuff and taking your stuff to the recycling or to the charity shop, or giving it away to somebody else who can use it so you don't like it anymore, that idea of giving it away, letting it go, throwing it away, waste. Some people don't want to throw that stuff away because it's wasting, but if they can give it to somebody else who's going to make use of it, then it's not wasting. Whereas food is very different, isn't it? If it's been prepared and no one's eating it, it's going to go off. It is wasted. And so that's a really powerful pattern for me that totally got in the way of my eating. The other things I mentioned earlier is I love food, so I've got a desire for great food. I'm probably a bit greedy and just love my food. So reining back and not eating the delicious things in front of me is quite hard. So thinking about things like greed and desire around food are interesting themes that kind of play in and are connected to the eating pattern. Now, the thing about eating as well is we might be conscious that we eat too much, as I was earlier, and try to sort of rein it in. But it doesn't matter what consciously I want to do, because my emotions just waded in and just trod all over my plans. And that's what happens with a lot of aspects of our lives. When you are faced with a situation where you're kind of up against the wall, not that I was up against the wall, but I was faced with, oh my God, I was up against the wall in the context of this food situation. And then my default settings kicked in. That mindful, conscious thought just left the space and waded in my default settings, which are about my value for not wasting stuff was much higher, is more important to me than the value of eating less, because actually I've got a value for appreciating good food. So you can see how these values are fighting with each other, and it depends on who wins. And the one that's going to win is the one that's got more power and more energy behind it, more desire energy behind it. So when we're thinking about what's influencing our eating patterns and the way that we eat, it's useful to try and dig a little bit deeper, pull back the layers, to try and explore what are the value conflicts that might be going on that are contributing to the way that we eat. Another thing that you might be aware of when you think about eating is when you eat too much, say, is that you kind of, or not when you eat too much, if you want to kind of keep an eye on your food and really put it back. Maybe you want to go on a diet, maybe you want to lose weight, and you start really consciously doing that. So you put in real effort that can be hard work for some people to kind of eat less food, and then you'll go into maybe depriving yourself of certain foods and things and not going out with friends and certain situations that put you in the situation where you might be faced with eating more food than you would like. Now, the thing about this, when there's effort involved, at some point that effort, energy is going to run out, and it's almost like an elastic. There's this tension that exists. So while you've got this energy that exists at the eating too much end and the not eating enough or eating too little, or these polar opposites that we have, you can kind of really put the effort in to go eat less, eat too little, eat less than I need, however you might want to express that concept to yourself. But eventually the pressure's too much, you've stretched it, because its default natural place it wants to be is at the eating too much end, which is where you enjoy being. You like the food, you like eating, you like all that stuff. Maybe you're doing it to cover up the way that you feel about certain things and anxieties and things like that. So the reason for it, I'm not exploring that now, but if there's a pattern in place of eating too much, then that's where it likes to sit in its natural place, and that's where you will default to when your back is against the wall, i.e. stressed, upset, angry, blah blah blah. Eating too much will be where you go to. So the minute you start moving along to eating less, you're just building up tension, and at some point it's going to snap or it's going to bounce back. And then when it does bounce back, you're probably going to go much further than you normally would have done. And so you hear this a lot, where somebody's, trying not to eat much, they're cutting down on their food, and then poof, suddenly they find themselves eating a whole tub of ice cream, where they probably wouldn't have done that in the normal eating too much phase, but they've bounced all the way that far because the tension, the energetic tension, has just, and they're out of control at that point. So the way that you kind of dissolve that energetic tension is by clearing this energy at both ends, and that's where head trash clearance can really help you to do that. So there are mantras that I've written out for those that want to work on this. And in these mantras, I've kind of really gone to town with them and had some fun with them, actually, because, as far as I'm concerned, when you're clearing your head trash, there's no reason why you can't have fun doing this stuff, and it can be quite funny, even though the business of eating too much and not eating enough can be quite serious. For those that are suffering with things like anorexia or bulimia or eating conditions, that can be a serious thing. But that does not mean that you have to take the act of sorting it seriously. But yes, of course you do take it seriously, but you can have fun while taking it seriously, and that's how I like to do things. So the mantras I've provided, for those of you who have access to them, then yes, you'll notice I've gone a little bit off track. It's not off track, they're perfect, but I've just had a bit more fun with those, because I think it can really help you to really access those hidden patterns around food that we might have, that we may not immediately be aware of. And so the other thing I just want to talk about food is just thinking about a little bit more about some of these other patterns that might be touching our eating habits, and thinking particularly about maybe those that are really into the losing weight, the diet side of things, and maybe they're counting calories and they're kind of have an obsession around calories. So maybe there are clearances there to do around not enough calories, too many calories, just the idea of calories and being obsessed by them. Doing a clearance around the idea of calories can kind of lose your obsession with them, because obsession is never really a healthy thing. Then obviously what's linked very closely to eating is drinking, and that's I should probably have a whole other video on that. But again, drinking too much, not drinking enough. Drinking too much in the context of potentially things like alcohol, and then not drinking enough in terms of things like water. If you're striving for healthiness, at least, not everyone is prioritising health, because again, that's a value, and some people just don't seem to care and will just drink as much as they want every day and don't really think that that's a big problem. Whereas some other people who prioritise health will look at that and go, "Wow, give your body a break." So these are all where our values are kicking in. So again, if you're thinking about, if you, in the context of eating, dieting, I've mentioned dieting with calories, and what else can I mention around eating? I think that's it, really. I think that's all I'm going to talk about eating for today. So I hope this has been helpful for you if you're doing clearances or any clearances around your eating habits. Good luck. Bye.